It helps when I unmute my mic. Anyway, started Scott. Good evening. I hope everybody's having a good Monday or had a good Monday today and still having a good one. As you can see, we're on week 10 of 12. So, yes, we have two more sessions to go. Also, as you can see, if you are submitting a tracker, your 10th tracker is due today. Like usual, I do have everyone's mic on mute, so you can always unmute your mic for questions or comments. And of course, like usual, I do have the chat feature available as well. So we're going to go ahead and get started for the day. What we'll do, like we do every week, is we'll discuss the success of last week's action steps. We will then get to the topic of the day, which is emotional eating. We will then assign the week's action steps, introduce next week's topic and next week's Go Healthy Tracker, and then answer any questions that you may have. Okay. So, last week's action steps. If you remember, we talked about motivation and momentum, and we talked about remain focused on what is motivating you. So, the why. And of course, we said with motivation, it's better to have multiple motivators because, motivators, come and go. They're very fleeting. So it's good to have short term motivators, it's good to have long term motivators, etc. We also said, momentum, sustain or regain your momentum. And momentum is the how. So we got motivation as the why. Momentum is the how. How are you going to sustain or regain the momentum? Okay. And we said kind of four basic things. Number one is to have multiple motivators, set SMART goals. Remember, specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely. Okay. And we said with those SMART goals, that's where you can look at our fundamentals that we talked about. We've set SMART goals with our fruits and our veggies, our water intake, and our physical activity. We also, number three, talked about preparing for obstacles that will come in your way. And then last but not least, to sustain or regain momentum is to have a support system or an accountability partner. Okay. So saying all of that, does anyone have any comment on adding a new motivator since we met last week, or maybe the status of your momentum? Has it stalled? Are you doing good with your momentum? Have you kind of started regaining it again? So anybody want to list any comments or on a new motivator or your momentum status? See you, Jason. Make sure you don't eat all the Halloween candy. Anyone? A new motivator or your momentum status.
Well, my momentum has stopped since I've had surgery. It's just been hard recovering.
Okay. Yeah. Definitely. That's definitely an obstacle that can definitely get in your way. And what I would do is just as far as kind of regaining that momentum, is just kind of fall back into the general fundamentals that we talked about. Not only food related fundamentals or activity related fundamentals, but also, quality of sleep, managing stress, etc. So definitely, hopefully you can get going and regain that momentum. Okay, Ted has no comment. That's fine. Okay. All right. Well, we will go ahead then and move on. So, moving forward, though, with this action step, think about your motivators. Think about a short-term motivator, think about long-term motivator, etc., etc. Okay. All right. So, going to go to the topic of the day, which is emotional eating. Now, we like to give a definition of what emotional eating is. And emotional eating is eating as a way to suppress or soothe negative emotions such as stress, anger, fear, boredom, sadness, loneliness, major life events, or the hassles of daily life. However, emotional eating can be positive emotions. So, eating as part of positive emotions such as happiness and comforting memories. So, it's not just negative, but it's also positive emotions. All right. So, what we're going to do is I'm going to drum up a video. It's a 5-minute video on tips to stop stress eating. Now, I know she terms it as stress eating, but it actually encompasses all parts of emotional eating other than just stress eating. And in this video, she's going to address and answer two questions. Is the first is why we emotional eat, and number two, how we stop emotional eating. Now, I did email everyone this video today that you can always go back and look on it. Also, she's a dietitian, registered dietitian, and she's got a lot of great information that's free of charge. So if you want to look or follow her, any information that she has, I think it'd be very beneficial for you because she deals with all types of topics. Okay. So we're going to watch this video. After the video, we'll come back to the PowerPoint and we're going to recap what she was talking about. Okay. So I'm going to stop sharing this and I'm going to get to the video and we will all enjoy the video. Share sound. Okay, I think the sound is ready to go.
Hey there, Susan with Positively Fit You here, and today we're going to talk about stress eating. And be sure to watch till the end so you can get my free tip sheet on stopping your stress eating. We all do it from time to time. We stress eat for many reasons. And most of the time, when we stress eat, we realize what we're doing, but we continue to do it. And then we get mad at ourselves, right? But then what happens? We do it again the next time we're stressed or worried about something. How can we stop the cycle of stress eating if food is our go-to when we're worried or stressed? Now, first of all, there are different reasons why we stress eat. First of all, there's a physiological reason. When we get stressed, our body releases cortisol, which is a stress hormone. Cortisol can cause us to have cravings, and usually those cravings aren't for chicken and veggies. Usually we crave sugar or salt or fatty foods, carbs. Then when we eat, food does create chemical changes in the body which can soothe us temporarily. That's the key word. We aren't soothed for long, and then how do we feel later? We also may go to food when we're stressed because of connections that we might have in our minds with food and emotions. Maybe it's childhood experiences. Most of us were probably rewarded at times with ice cream after a soccer game or going out to dinner for our favorite high-calorie meal after a good report card. We as adults still do this, right? We celebrate with food a lot more than we should, but we do. So when we're stressed, we tend to connect food with relaxing and happiness, and maybe it works temporarily. We also stress eat to distract ourselves. One of my best friends from growing up is married to a police officer and he mainly works nights. She tells me that she often catches herself stress eating in order to shift her attention away from worrying about him. Now, this can be the same with parents whose 16-year-old son just got his driver's license and he's not home yet. Or if we're stressed about work or a relationship or finances or an illness, food can take our attention away from whatever we're worried about temporarily. So, how do we stop stress eating? The first step is recognizing what we're doing and asking ourselves this question: am I physically hungry? If the answer is no, it's best to fill the void that we're attempting to fill with food with something else. Now, if you really do want to eat something, the best thing to do is to not have trigger foods in your house. Trigger foods are foods that cause us to want more and more and more and then not be able to stop. Now, this may be sugar or salt, or for some people, even something like cereal. If you know that you have a problem with a certain food, it's best to get it out of the house. We can't eat what we don't have. It's also about finding foods that replace sugary or salty snacks that may be your go-to. I often have my favorite protein bars cut up into halves or quarters, and then I have them in little sandwich baggies. That way, if I really want something, I go and I grab a little baggie, take it to a different room, eat it slowly, and then go brush my teeth. There are also healthier salty snacks that you can pre-portion too. Of course, if you know you aren't physically hungry, it's best to avoid food altogether, but it's definitely a good idea to have healthier options readily available. Now, stress and worry obviously can cause us to want to eat, but there are some other things that can help with these emotions that don't cause weight gain and don't cause us to feel crappy later. The better thing to do instead of going for food if you're not hungry is to have a list, a physical list of things that relax you. This may be taking a bath, doing your favorite yoga stretch, sitting in silence meditating for 5 minutes, making yourself a cup of tea that you enjoy, or even something as simple as lighting a couple candles. Now, I just read you my list, and I do have these things on a physical list that I keep handy for when I'm stressed or worried about something and I just want to go to the fridge. All of these things that I just mentioned seem like little treats to me. So I will pick one and I'll do it. These things make us feel better, which is what we're looking for when we're stressed or worried. We're looking for something to ease the stress. It's much better to pick something with 0 calories, right? Now, it's important to remember that stress eating only causes us more stress. The temporary effects of food when we're stressed are very, very short lived. And then we don't feel good. When we don't feel good physically, we have a harder time dealing with stress. And that makes it worse. And we also get stressed when we realize we've gained weight, right? So today, when you're done watching this video, if stress eating is something that goes on with you, make your list of things that relax you and keep it handy. You will be happy that you did. Now, be sure to go to the description of this video and click the link to get my free tip sheet on stopping your stress eating. If you like this video, be sure to click the like button, share it with your friends, and as always, be sure to subscribe. Also,
All right, I'm going to stop sharing that video and pull our PowerPoint back up. Like I said, you should have that video in your inbox for you to go back and look over, okay? So let me pull this video back up, excuse me, the PowerPoint, and then we're going to recap what the dietitian was saying. So two answers or two questions that she answered. Why do we emotional eat and how do we stop emotional eating? Well, the first one, why do we emotional eat? And she said, one, there's a physiological reason in response to stress. So the adrenal gland actually secretes the cortisol hormone in response to stress. The second thing is the connections in our minds with food and emotions. And then the third thing is to distract ourselves. Okay. So that is her explanation of why we emotional eat. Now, the second question she asked is how do we stop emotional eating? Two steps she talked about. One is the first step is recognition. And the second one is replacement. So let's look at that a little bit further. So, first step and second step of how do we stop emotional eating? Okay. The first step that she talked about is to recognize if you're experiencing emotional hunger or physical hunger. So, let's kind of see the distinction between the two. All right. You see here, starting to the left, emotional hunger. That's where your hunger comes on suddenly. Where physical hunger, your hunger comes on gradually. Emotional hunger means you must be satisfied instantly, where physical hunger says your needs can wait. With emotional hunger, you crave specific comfort foods whereas the physical hunger, lots of foods typically sound good to you. And with emotional hunger, you eat quickly, usually in private. Where physical hunger, you take your time eating with good company. Two more, you're with emotional hunger, you're not satisfied with a full stomach. Where physical hunger, you stop eating when you're full. And then lastly, after eating, you have feelings of shame, guilt, or powerlessness with the emotional hunger. With physical hunger, after eating, you do not feel bad about yourself. So the first step is to recognize if you're experiencing that emotional hunger or if you're experiencing that physical hunger. Kind of know the distinction. Um, just checking over to the chat here with Ted. He's doing Ted like has weird. Found myself watching without me think about it. Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah. So part of that kind of emotional hunger where you make that connection. All right. So let's look at the second step. The second step. So if you do recognize that you're experiencing that emotional hunger instead of that physical hunger, she said to replace that with non food distractions or activities. So replace with non food distractions or activities. Just some suggestions. Some she talked about, some I've got here. Like you can listen to relaxing music. You can call a friend or a loved one. You can do physical activity or exercise. Of course, that's one of our fundamentals. And, that helps release those feel good hormones as well. You can take a soothing bath, a shower. Also, you can read your favorite book. You can do inside or outside chores. You can pray. You can meditate. Maybe drink a hot cup of coffee or tea. And then lastly, just a couple of other things I was thinking about maybe doing some deep breathing techniques or participate in your favorite hobby. Okay. So she said the second step, if you recognize that you're experiencing emotional hunger, replace with non food distractions or activities, especially if you want that non calorie version. Now, but she did say if you do experience in that emotional hunger and you do want to eat something, make sure you replace those unhealthy foods with healthier foods. Okay. Um, so those two things of why we emotional eat and how do we stop emotional eating. So, does anybody have any questions or comments related to the video or, what we had just talked about with how or why we emotional eat and how we can stop emotional eating? Okay. Well, that takes us really to your week's action steps. And your week's action steps will be to recognize if you're experiencing emotional eating. And if you are experiencing that emotional eating, replace it with either non food distractions or activities, some of the things that she talked about, some of the things that I showed you here. So you'll have that non calorie version, or, you know, replace it with health or replace those unhealthy foods with healthier foods if you do decide to eat something. Um, so recognize. And then what she suggested, and I think that would be good, is to create yourself your own list of non food distractions or activities. So you can go to when you have that emotional eating pop up. Okay. Also, you want to make sure you're working on your fundamentals. trying to apply those fundamentals every single day. You remember that's using your guide to smart food choices to help you control your calorie content within all those 5 food groups. It's consuming your water. Of course, we've set a specific goal of 64 ounces a day. If you're not quite there yet, that's fine. You just keep working on that. We talked about, your other 3 food groups, your grains, your proteins, and your dairy, making sure with your grains, you're making at least half your grains whole grains. With proteins, you're varying your protein routine. You're going lean with protein. With dairy products, move to low fat to fat free versions. So within all those 3 food groups, definitely make sure you're picking the right ones. You're controlling the quantity. We talked about the fruits and vegetables, 5 servings per day. If you're not quite there, that's okay. You just keep working on that. Talked about meal replacements if you're doing that. And then lastly, that physical activity, 30 to 60 minutes a day. Again, anything that gets you moving can count toward that physical activity. Of course, the more intense that level of physical activity is, the more benefits that you can receive. Okay. So again, recognizing emotional eating and replacing with non-food distractions or activities, or with healthier foods. If you go the calorie option, think about making yourself your own list of non-food distractions or activities and meeting your fundamentals. And then next week, we're going to talk about the topic of managing your health. Okay. And that's one of the things when we talked about in the introduction class. We talked about several goals. One was weight management, but another one was also management of your health. So we're going to talk about that next week. Tomorrow, if you are using the tracker, I will send you that link. So does anybody have any questions or comments before we go? Yeah, you're welcome. All right, and I did record this, so once we do get this sent over as a YouTube video, I will email this out to everybody. Other than that, if you have any questions, you can always reach out to me over email. I hope y'all have a good rest of the night, and I will see you all next Monday. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.